Hey everyone, welcome to the Leeds View podcast for the first podcast of the new week. We do these on a Monday and a Wednesday, as well as daily Leeds United news between Monday and Friday. We're part of the Sports Social Podcast Network, and we are partnered with OK Jersey for 8% off World Cup shirts for a World Cup summer. You can get access to that through the links down below and by using the code TVU in your shopping basket at checkout. Order a size up on OK Jerseys if you are getting a shirt. But we've got lots to talk about. The season's over. Leeds have finished in a respectable position in the Premier League. We didn't get relegated. We know who's coming up. We know who's going down now. And we can start to digest the intricacies of the end of this season. I'm delighted to be joined by Andrea Russo for tonight's podcast. And Gerry wasted no time in the season wrapping up before he headed off on his holidays and jetted off after the West Ham game yesterday to talk about the start of this week's news, which has already kicked in. First things first, Gerry, you couldn't wait to get to the beach, a bit like the Leeds team in the second half yesterday.
But yeah, my other half said, "Should we go on Saturday?" I said, "Monday's better. It's cheaper." Yeah, and it's always fun. Yeah. I got back from the game last night about 10:30, and I was on the 10 to 6 flight this morning, so my head's a bit. If I nod off, just give me a nudge. It was a weird game yesterday because we played well first half, and second half. I mean, I'm not going to lose my mind about it. It's the bigger picture. I mean, if you're going to have a bad performance, a bad second half, to do it then, yeah. And if that had been in December, big worries. But it was very hot and weird atmosphere and weird things going on. I think the Leeds fans were more interested in winding up the West Ham fans, and I felt a bit sorry for them because we've been there. We know what it's like, and it's a tough day for them. I mean, traffic, I disobeyed me sat nav, and it cost me an hour and a half on the way down, and I stuck in traffic. Got there, to the soulless Athletic Stadium. Got there, and it was very sweaty. $2.95 for a bottle of water. Lovely, yeah, that's what it is. But things end of season just throws out stuff that annoys you. One thing I really don't like is celebration shirts. You know, as soon as you win a trophy, there's a shirt with says 26 champions or we're promoted, and it's so not spontaneous. I dislike that. I dislike Declan Rice's head. I didn't like his face yesterday at the back of his head, him pretending he was worried about West Ham. You know, he's worse than Prince William, really, isn't he? Another
camera on him,
yeah. Oh, is the camera on me? Oh, let's look disappointed at West Ham, who I left for more money. I got relegated. And Guard of Honor is coming off the pitch. Oh, come on.
I'm not a fan of Guards of Honor in the middle of a game.
I just think it's so plastic, and at the end of the game. I mean, I was listening to Man City coming back, and it went on forever, speeches and everything else. Just wave to the crowd. That's it. Thanks very much. Present them with a tankard. That's it. I think yesterday Leeds were just out, I think, as the fans said, we're there to take the piss. And I think they sang the whole of the championship. It was Preston away, Watford away, Lincoln, etc. And did you see the cover of, Leeds posted that thing of Ampadu going up an escalator, and you can just see it gloved hands coming down. Was it Somerville? I don't know.
So it was Somerville.
It was him. It was him. Yeah,
it definitely was. I like that.
But I missed one of the goals because there was a drunk bloke in front of me swaying, and that was the sort of game it was. Halfway through the second half, who's playing left back? Is it Willie? And the whole thing just fell apart. And I just thought, people are saying unacceptable, disgraceful, everything else. And I just thought, give him a break. It was end of season, so be it. We had a bad second half, and that doesn't define our season at all. So, no, I think we've had a brilliant season. I'm proud of everything. I love the fans. They were brilliant again yesterday. The last fans you want at your ground when you're getting relegated is Leeds fans. And and one last thing, if you're in this heat, don't walk your dog in the middle of the day. I've seen people with dogs today. They're little fellas. That's something Declan Rice would do. Anyway, other than that, I had a great day.
Got to get a bingo card for you for each week for things Gerry's like to say. Criticize the stadium, talk about the home fans. Declan Rice, tick tick tick. Yeah. Get him on the list. Yeah, it was. The final day of the season is always a weird one. Like people sending messages yesterday going, what do you think about clubs wearing their new shirts for the new season and the last day of the season? Well, they're obviously selling them right now, so there's a marketing piece there. Leeds will be releasing their shirts probably till the end of July, like they normally do. So we're never going to fall into that bracket. But there's a lot of Tim Pie stuff at the end of the season I don't love. But one thing, Andrea, that won't bother me ultimately, I was annoyed after the game. I got over it within an hour, went downstairs, had a drink, sat in the backyard in the sun, got over it pretty quickly because the job was done. This was always going to be a game where you've got one side with loads to play for, one side with nothing to play for. A couple of players maybe minding themselves heading into the summer, and maybe a couple of players who are very aware that's probably it for them at Leeds as well. And we'll get to that in a few minutes when we get the Paraag statement. But yeah, disappointing second half, but good, decent first half. And does it show some gaps in that squad though as well, especially when you think about how light it was coming towards that game?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first half we had the better chances. In the end, I think we look all right. All things considered, because like you said, Gerry, we had nothing to play for after a long journey that was very draining. Especially physically, we had a lot of injuries throughout the season. We had players playing out of positions in key moments of the season, so it was tough on the players. We played very good game against Brighton. We played a very good game against Tottenham. In the end, we arrived really tight, with an injury crisis, looking at the number of players we missed. We had 2 youngsters on the bench too. In the end, we even saw Buonanotte making a very rare cameo,
It was all right.
In the end
I thought he was all right.
He run?
It was the cherry on the cake, just is adieu to Leeds. It was the final adieu to Leeds. But yeah, I'm not really bothered by the performance, to be fair. I think it was right in the first half. In the second half, especially with the substitutions, like you said, there were players that maybe know that they won't play a part in the future at Leeds. They had chances eventually throughout the season, didn't race to them, or just didn't match the gap between the Championship and the Premier League, like specifically Bureau as an example. But West Ham, they were playing for their lives. Their first half was very nervous, very nerve-wracking, because especially Spurs was leading too. So in the end, we made some mistakes, especially the third goal with Callum Wilson. Darlow made another great save on him before that. So honestly, it wasn't a great performance looking at the second half. But in the end, I think everybody was just like Gerry said, the fans were there to take the piss at the West Ham fans. I would have preferred Spurs to go down, to be fair. I think West Ham deserve it in the end, because all the mistakes they've made behind the scenes, especially they didn't build on the victory in the Conference League. They also made, I think the previous season a Europa League semi-final. Was the season before, not the season after. The season before, So they had a good squad, but they didn't manage to build on that. We know what is happening with Sullivan. It's been criticized by. We don't know how long. Looks like forever since he's been there. So mistakes after mistakes lead West Ham back to the Championship, but also Tottenham. After the Champions League final that they made with the sacking of Pochettino, they made mistakes after mistake. Mourinho, Conte, look at the number of managers they replace, and eventually, both teams probably deserve to go down. But eventually, I don't like his antics, but I'm happy for my fellow countrymen. The Serbia, I like his football actually, but he really. You see what he did after the game. He went into the press conference and said, "What is the journalist that was always criticizing us?" I don't like those antics. But he's always been like that. He's always been his type of personality.
Yeah, well, 2 seasons finished 17th in a row. I wouldn't be going into any press conference playing, Johnny Big Boy, trying to look for journalists to call them out. You just about survived, pal, on the final day of the season by the skin of your teeth. So
1-0 too. Yeah.
1-0 as well. Yeah, exactly. So fine margins in that game. And again, had they maybe been playing the side fighting for European football, realistically, that could have been a very different outcome as well. So I wouldn't be patting myself on the back too quickly if I was the Zerbi. But an interesting final 3 that have gone down. Wolves finished bottom of the table, which they probably deserved to on the back of, well, definitely the first half of the season. Burnley second from bottom. West Ham United drop into the Championship. West Ham are going down with apparently £150 million worth of sales needed just to get some of the books balanced. They're still on payday loans for some of the players they brought in. They will owe money for signings that they've already made. far too many cooks making far too many decisions in the kitchen at West Ham. That's been called out on TalkSport today. Went into detail about David Sullivan being involved in transfers, Karen Brady hiring the managers bringing their own transfer people in with them as well, and everyone's making decisions. So an absolute mess and a soulless stadium, which has gotten a huge amount of criticism again. So they go down. Gerry joined in the Premier League next season. We'll have Coventry come up as champions, Ipswich Town second place, and Joe Gelhart's Hull City come up in the playoffs after all the debacle around Spygate. So probably the best outcome that the EFL could have hoped for in terms of just putting the Spygate stuff to bed and not having one of the clubs that were involved in that coming into it. So it makes an interesting looking Premier League next season. But and again, just to judge it on its merits right now, depends on how the summers go. It could have been a worse three sides coming up for us next season.
Yeah, well, what a mess the whole playoff thing was. The Spygate. To be honest, could have done with some of them Southampton binoculars yesterday to try and see the pitch. We were that far away.
Far away, yeah.
I suppose even up to last year, everybody said, well, the three that come up are going down. But look at Sunderland yesterday. I mean, Mike, what a performance by them. I used to watch Sunderland till I die, and they were League One, joke of the club, and the last time they were in Europe when they beat us in the FA Cup final. That's the last time they're in Europe. So a fantastic job, and a lot of teams will be looking at that and thinking, that's the way you have to do it. We've got to spend 100+ million. Leeds showed how to do it with sensible recruitment, and Burnley showed how not to do it by just resting on your laurels and just being a bouncing team. I look at that whole team and you think that looks very championship. I mean, they avoided on the last day, I think on goal difference, relegation. They had the transfer embargoes. I don't know how that works with them coming up, but
it's gone at the end of this month.
Yeah, and the manager no one's heard of's come in and they've done a job. Yeah, they've done it from 6, but yeah, who cares? I look at players they've got, like Louis Coyle was one of our players 10 years ago. McBurney, what performance he's put in, but is it? Yeah, John Egan
too.
JB, Joe Gelhart.
John Egan. So it just depends what they can do. But you're right. I'm looking at those teams and think, well, it's, I suppose Ipswich have bounced back, but these are new teams coming up, and what can they do? And you would think, well, you'd hope the 3 weaker teams than you, and then you look around, you think, well, Sunderland and Bournemouth, they're going to have Europa League Thursdays and fixtures on Sunday, and I think I'm right in saying because they're in the Europa League, their spending cap or ceiling is reduced.
It is big time, 15% reduced. They can only spend 70% of their overall revenue next season, whereas it'll be 85% if you're not in Europe. And the big part of it is, for getting into the Europa League, the 15% that they lose probably won't be brought in by the money they'll receive via the Europa League. So it's kind of a poison chalice a little bit.
Yeah, if you're playing Azerbaijan Rovers or on a Thursday night, you're not going to get that income if that's the 5th game and you're down the league. So I think in that respect, we could easily have got into Europe. We weren't that far off it.
7 points.
I'm looking at Palace, new manager, Bournemouth, new manager. So these things we're stable, and I think we got to just keep that stability going and good recruitment again. We'll be talking about comings and goings and what have you, but I think the 3 coming up, you have to think they've got a big gap. And maybe Ipswich last time bought the top championship players, if you like, and it didn't quite work. So it's how much they've got. We could ask their main biggest fan, Nigel Farage, if he's got any money. I think he's got some knocking around. Yeah, so it'll be. But those are the teams that we'd want to see. Those 3 worst teams than us. And somebody said to me this time next year, Leeds will finish 14th, 13th, and have the same season again. I go, yeah, I'll take that. I really enjoyed this season and the way we went about it, and I think we got to do that again. You can run before you walk, and then that's when you fall. So I think that's what we've got to do. But yeah, it'll be very interesting to see how these teams perform. You could have a Sunderland, or you could have a Burnley and a Wolves, and it just shows you if you come up and don't give it a go like Burnley did, didn't invest the money, very defensive, and a team that ran us 100 points last year finished 25, 27 points behind us this year. 25. Yeah, so there's lots of ways of doing it, but then you look at teams. Oldham were a Premiership team, went out of the league and back, so you can just fall to Leicester, Bolton, all these teams who were in the Premier League, give it a go, and then when they fell out of it, it falls, as we know as well. So yeah, fixtures are out on June 19th, so we'll be going again. Let's have a day off and think about the season we've had, but hey, we go again, and the stresses of transfer windows.
Yeah, well, that'll be the big talking point. Transfer window opens on the 15th of June this year, so we've not got long to wait until we get to that stage. It is when we will talk about that in a bit more detail, because obviously Paraag Marathe made his statement tonight as well, and there's some interesting tidbits to get stuck into that. But before we get to that, just to wrap up the season, Andrea, just talking about Sunderland there, and that 70% poison chalice potentially of getting into Europe and running before you can, or walking before you can run. Only 7 points between Leeds United and Sunderland come the end of it. It does highlight that Leeds have got a strong opportunity this season to narrow the gap on the sides above them, given how few points there actually is. And we could probably go back and pick 4 or 5 games out this season where we would have said Leeds should have got 3 there, Leeds should have got 3 there, they could have got something there. If you hadn't lost to Burnley away, if you had beaten Sunderland at home, you could be sitting 8 in the table right now. So there could be a benefit for this, because Paraag Marathe has said we need to be careful this summer because of the SCR coming in. I'll give you some detail on that in a second before that. But it does mean for maybe the clubs like the Bournemouth, Brighton, Sunderland, their floor this summer when it comes to finances is going to be a little bit tighter than maybe it was last summer. So it's an interesting month for them. I'm sure they'll all be delighted they've got European football, but unless they're going to go and win the competition, which they could, they might find they have to tighten the belt a little bit.
Yeah, it's what happened to Nottingham Forest basically after the first season, when they spent heavily, and then they had to spend more wisely. But I know that wisely probably in terms of spending is not a term that can be associated with Mr. Barinakis probably. No. But yeah, they had to be associated.
Calm approach.
They had to be more. Yeah, they had to have a calmer approach, but not calm in that sense. They still spent heavily, but less money compared to the first one. But yeah, I'm happy for Sunderland, to be fair. I'm glad Gerry mentioned Sunderland here. Lycos is a very good series. They've been through a lot, Lycos, especially then they went down to consecutive relegations back to back. They at least short, when they had the ownership, they went with Stuart Duncan was the name, something like that. Charlie Metton, the new ownership that took over. Then they were blocked. Basically, they were in the mud, in League One for 3 seasons. Then they went out of that league and bounced back with the new ownership of Rutherford. But yeah, I'm not really surprised, honestly, because when we were doing a live with Joe, was around late October, early November. We were talking about the state of affairs. Back then, and I said I think Sunderland might get Europe. And I'm really surprised. Eventually, this prophecy became reality. Became a reality. Has become a reality. But yeah, I'm glad for them because they invested wisely the money. They spent a lot, but they brought in players like Brian Brobby, Sadiki, Diarra. They spent players that were like Sadiki was in the Belgian league with Saint-Gilloise. It was very good, but they went to the Belgian league to pick him up. Yeah, Xhaka. They took some veterans like Xhaka, Gertruida, those players, but also other players that like Brobby. Brobby had failed before when he left the Netherlands, when he went to Germany to RB Leipzig. So it was a gamble in the end because it wasn't proven outside of he failed before. Outside of the Netherlands. But yeah, eventually down to us. Sunderland, of course, will play Europe, but the fact that they need to spend more wisely compared to last summer, probably they have a good scouting recruitment. We have already seen that, last summer with Ghisolfi. There's a total connection between Ghisolfi and Lebris. So they will have the pool of European football, and they will have the pool to sign players that will want to come to Sunderland to play European football. So that will help, in terms of attracting players there, despite the fact that maybe they will be forced to spend less. And in the end, they already have a good core group, so they don't need to invest and change the whole team like Forest did, like they did, Sunderland last summer. Compared to us, I think I agree with Gerry when he says, I would be okay if Leeds has another season finishing 13, 14, around that position. My worry is that a lot of people, especially online, in the fan base, because we are Leeds, we are famous Leeds United, dirty Leeds, all of that. They will just think, okay, we need to get to Europe next season. But like Italians say, calma. We need to be calm, because even if Paraag says, even more, with Paraag saying that we have this situation, we need to build step by step. We can aim for a mid-table finish if we clinch and nail the signings to add more depth to the squad. We may be, when we are safe, first thing, safe. I want to underline that. When we are safe, we can then aim and push for Europe, like we did in the first season under Bielsa, because we had a window and we didn't use that window, in that season where we could have aimed for the first qualification of, I think it was the first season when you could qualify for the Conference League, because the season after, I think it was the first one of the Conference League. But yeah, I think in the end, players will leave eventually. So it would be clear and important, to add players of Premier League quality and add more rotation probably to the squad, because this season was a great result, overachieved compared to the depth of the team, to the level of investment of other teams that finished below us. But there were worrying signs, the league was sending us signs like, look at the number of injuries you had, look at maybe the drop that we had, I've seen certain players, especially I'm looking at Brendan Aronson, he was flying, towards the end of the year. He had a little bit, not a little, he had a drop in form, in 2026. So you need a player that can bring competition to him there, for example. So yeah, we can aim, but first thing first, be safe. And then if you have the squad, if you have the depth, you can probably push with a clear mind towards those places, like Sunderland did in the end, because they were like 4 points above us at one point in recent weeks, when we were still not mathematically safe, 4 or 5 points, above us. Then they pushed, and eventually on the last day of the season, they got into Europe. So that shows that there's always a possibility when you are safe and you have a clear mind and you can push for higher objectives and goals,
Yeah, try and get safe as early as you can, which is what they did, similar to their season last year. Very strong first half of the season, weaker second half of the season, but they turned around towards the end. Again, not unlike what they did last season, the championship as well. And we'll move on top of the summer, then we'll talk
if
about...
If I can, a very quick one, Ger. And on the three teams promoted, I think Hull will invest very similar to Sunderland because of their owner, Ilichali. Coventry, they have a very smart recruitment process, maybe less funds compared to others, but they are very smart. They have a model similar to Brentford and Brighton. And I think
they do have a lot of loanees that they need to make a decision on whether they become permanent. That will obviously come out of their budget as well.
Yeah, exactly, that one. But I'm sure they will spend very wisely, in terms of the money, the budget that they will have, very similar to what Brentford did when they got into the league. And Ipswich, I think they will have learned one or two of the mistakes that they made when they went to the Premier League 2 years ago and went down immediately, So I think probably the most challenging one, looking at the funds, will be probably all, for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they got a chance to at least set themselves up for a couple of years. They might do a bit of yo-yo win. They might not. But yeah, it's an interesting one. Talk about the summer then. Paraag Marathe has put his end of season statement there. For those listening to the audio, I'll read through it real quickly. He says, with the season now finished following an extraordinary effort by everyone connected to the great football club, I am immensely proud to have achieved our goals of securing another season in the Premier League. While this year brought memorable highs and difficult moments, Daniel and the squad delivered a special campaign in the league where promoted clubs usually struggle. Survival in our first season back is a significant accomplishment. We are also especially proud of the record of our first league win at Old Trafford since 1981 and having reached the FA Cup semi-final since the first time since 1987. This season, clearly one of the determining factors for the squad was your energy at Ellen Road. We collected 32 points on home soil. We need that energy next season to ensure we remain a fortress. I said last year that the road ahead would not be easy, and that is still true. History shows that the second season in the Premier League can be just as, if not more challenging than the first. We remain ambitious, but measured and deliberate, understanding that this will take 3 long-fought seasons before we can truly operate like an established Premier League side. This summer, instead of profit and sustainability rules, the squad cost ratio will impact our transfer market approach. As our accounts reflect, We spent every penny possible, as promised, to earn promotion and to keep the club in the Premier League. Our approach to the transfer market will once again be strategic and disciplined to comply with the regulations, while striving further to improve the players. While players will both arrive and depart this. As a result, remaining in the Premier League allows us to keep building both on and off the pitch with our global support-based commercial growth opportunity, stadium expansion project, and a world-class football operation. We believe strongly in the future of Leeds United. And then he goes on to thank the players and the fan base, our global fan base. Interesting parts to take out of this, Gerry, and it is worth talking about. SCR kicks in this summer, which is a significant change to PSR. The main bottom line on it is, rather than having 3 years worth of money to talk about, you've got one to talk about, and that's this season. It will be the year that you're in. So Leeds have managed to pick up £144.5 million for their position in the Premier League, which will help them. One of the key lines in that, and it will need to be something we bear in mind, it will be tighter for Leeds for a couple of years, but it has the potential to be better for Leeds in the longer term. But in the first couple of years of SCR, it will be a little bit tighter. So the key line for me there is players will go and leave, but he does give off the tone in this as he is still optimistic about what Leeds will do in the summer, but a strategic approach again. And we've talked about some of the players maybe playing their last game at the weekend. I think you're going to see players leave this summer and probably a bigger overhaul of the squad, or at least the floor of the squad, than we saw last summer.
Yeah, definitely. I think we saw that yesterday. I think there was a few good buys in there. I reckon some of those substitutions. If you look at the squad, Pirro, I wanted him to do well, but he's not got it. He won't want to sit on the bench for another year. He'll go. I think people like Stan Byron. It's looking at the profit. You pick up someone like Tanaka for what was it, 2 or 3 million. You're going to get 15-20 million for him. Willie, same, we picked him up for a few. People are going to be looking for him. We don't want to say we like these players. We don't want to say goodbye to them, but it's just business. Pascal Strike, he's the one that could generate most money, I suppose. Yeah. And I suppose that's the way we got to look at it. I think most of our squad this year probably increased in value. When we got relegated that time, it was a fire sale. Like a lot of teams, like Leicester will find out in League One, and West Ham will find out that people know you're desperate. We're not desperate, but these players they will generate more money for us. And I just hope that none of the crown jewels get snapped up, because people will be looking at Ampadu, Joe Rodon, Stack, people like that, and thinking they do really well. And one of my mates said, "I'm surprised, man, you aren't looking at Ampadu." And I thought,
yeah.
That, but he's as talented not only a player but a leader this year. I don't think he'll go, but these are the sort of things that can happen very quickly in football, and it's common sense. He's not saying, "Yeah, we're gonna blow it. We're just gonna go and spend everything." And you don't. And players will come and go. We know that. And he's not mentioned the manager. I expect one day we'll just open up our phones and there'll be Daniel Farke, 3-year contract. There'll be no fuss. And the 49ers tend to do this a lot. We sign players when there's no mention of them. And I think that's what will happen. I hope that's what happens. Because as I said before in this pod, that why change it? Why disrupt when we're building something? So it will be interesting to see. I think we said, did we say on or off, that the bench yesterday will probably, you look at that and think, yeah, a lot of them might move on. We need upgrades. I think we need an upgrade on Brendan. Brendan, we spoke about, he had his uplift in form coincided with ours after the Man City game, and either side of Christmas he was fantastic. The way his finishing at Newcastle was superb. Yesterday he basically doesn't kick it hard enough, and he's a good player. He's come back from being gone out on loan, and the fans on his back, and he's worked his socks off. But we need an upgrade. Brendan, not saying he's a squad player, but he's not a starting player, and that's what we need. We need 5-class signings. But as you can see, we buying players. I think Howard Wilkinson said something like 20%. If you can get 20% success on signings, you're doing well. And we could sign great players. There's no guarantee they're going to do well. So our recruitment, although we questioned them at times last year, did brilliantly. A lot of those players came in are worth more. And it just remains that there's going to be a big turnover. A lot of the championship players will have gone. We saw that when Bielsa's team eventually went, Luke Ayling, Liam Cooper, all players we love, but it's the way of football now. You don't have players getting testimonials and getting 500 and 600 appearances, and any of those players go, I think they go with our blessings, but we got to build a strong squad, and everything that Paraag said there, you can't disagree with it, and if you're running a business and it's not football and it's not your CEO says something like that, you go, yeah, that's sensible, that's proper looking at it. So yeah, let's see what occurs, and just hope to do it well. And but us as a fan base, we'll be doing our nut in when why haven't we signed someone? It's Tuesday. Why haven't we? It's about time. Where is it? We're linked with everybody. You know who we're linked with, Joe. We're linked with everybody. So it's very interesting month, but I hope they don't leave it late. I hope we don't have airplanes sitting on tarmac waiting on players. I hope it's steady, and by by June, July, we got a lot. But the World Cup is going to make a difference to that as well.
That's going to be a factor, yeah.
And, there's going to be a lot of players and agents out there. And there's a danger you sign the new toy that comes out of the World Cup. Some player comes, it's everybody wants to sign him. On the same respect, I hope Brendan has a fantastic World Cup and is one of the top players, and someone comes in with a ridiculous offer for him. That's the sort of thing you want to do. And in that same respect, I'm glad Calvert's not going and Stack's not going, because I don't want anybody to see them. Then you look at them as transfer value, and that's where it is. So they've got to go out and do that again. And there's no pressure. No pressure recruitment team.
Yeah. But that's exactly it. It's I think the recruitment team have got credit in the bank. If you look at the last 3 summers, ignoring January's, I have my own thoughts on January's, but ignoring January, you look at the last 3 summers, most of those 3 windows made up the squad that we had this season, and most of them played. And as you were saying there, Gerry, about 20% hit rate, a much higher hit rate. And look, we're going to see the same stuff. Andrea, we're going to get, well, hang on, Sunderland signed the bloke. Why didn't we sign him? Or they're signing this guy. Why are we not going after? We should be all over this guy, not this guy. I think we've learned this season, just trust the process a little bit. Then when the players do get here, give them a little bit of time. Let's not call Noah Okafor rubbish within 2 weeks, when he comes in. Give them a bit of time to settle into the league, settle into the environment as well. And then we'll judge them as the season goes on. But it's an important summer to get right. Players will, as Paraag says, will go. They've got to be strategic. To Gerry's point about the club being run like a business, I think we've seen that in the last couple of weeks when we saw Pete Lowy comment on the fact that the club is run in different departments, and each of those departments have KPIs, and they're all held accountable to those KPIs. So we've got to, that's a good thing, because it means if one department falls down, they're judged accordingly and replacements are made if that's needed. So right now, everybody's done the right thing to get us to where we are. It'll be another summer of change at Leeds. Probably was needed the season after Bielsa's didn't get it there. We went an extra year before we made the changes. Didn't work then. So it's an important summer from that perspective. But if you look at the model of what other clubs in the Premier League, the likes of Aston Villa, likes of Brighton, likes of Bournemouth, likes of Newcastle, they've all had a big sale every season, pretty much. They've all let someone go who you were surprised left the club in order to generate funds to rebalance the squad somewhere else. So don't be shocked if one of the crown jewels does leave the club for big money this summer, and then that money gets reinvested somewhere else. But if you follow the way the Villa, Brighton, Bournemouth, and Newcastle have run, Newcastle was a bit of an outlier this season, but in general, especially Brighton and Bournemouth, it's been a very sensible approach as well. Just make sure that the balance of the squad is correct and you're building a team for next season, and then give them time to settle in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the patience will be needed at this point, and I'm glad that Paraag has already spoke the day after about this. He already spoke about this the day after the final game of the season, because it's already setting the tone, regarding next season. He's already saying, okay, expect this. We're not selling you dreams. We're not selling you smoke. In that case, there's a saying, in Italy, like selling smokes in the eyes, covering your eyes with smoke, in terms of, oh, we can dream, we can reach those heights, we'll have these kind of players. And these are people, that are selling you something that's not the reality, So I'm glad that Paraag is selling you the reality. He's telling you, this is what we're going to do. He's not selling us dreams. Or unexpected reality, and realistic things. It's already setting the goals for next season. we will need to see if Farke will be, of course, he has a contract, and there will be negotiations needed, to happen, because I think he is the manager that can take this team forward, looking at the tightness and the togetherness and how the whole system works. He's at the helm of everything on the tactical side. The thing is, of course, that he's spoken about making the Leeds, so he was building expectations, of course, it was a day of celebration after Brighton, making Leeds one of the best teams in England. Again, we have the best fans, but we're gonna work about making Leeds one of the best teams in England.
Yeah.
So we'll need to match these two opportunities. Farke will need to understand too that this is the situation in case, and they will of course propose a plan to him, I'm sure. So it will be difficult in certain, because you'll have competition that can spend, in certain places. We've seen that last season with Sadiq and Diarra, for example.
Yeah.
With Sunderland, they had more money to spend than us in that sense, and they got them, and we didn't. But making sales, targeting the players, ticking the players, looking at the squad list, the players that can generate revenue. Of course, the top pick for me is Pascal Struijk, unfortunately, because he runs out of contract next season. He's 26. We need to do everything in our power to make Ampadu pen a new contract. Absolutely, 100%. He will have big offers, of course. We'll need to see if we have the capability, looking at what Paraag said in terms of squad cost ratio, to fend these offers, because of course he's the core of the team, he's the leader of the team, he's the one gluing everyone together, on the pitch. We are a completely different team without him. He's instrumental to our success. He was completely. Then, of course, one of the big sales can be, of course, Struijk, like I said. The other ones are minor for me, but you need to generate all the revenue that you can generate. I'm talking about Ramazani, I'm talking about Harrison, Yonto. One between Yonto and James, realistically. Pirot, maybe even Mecha, I think, because if you want to generate, I'm not against, I am against selling Mecha, honestly, because I think as the third option is very useful. It offers something different. Calvert-Lewin. Yeah, it offers something different.
But he did come in for nothing, and he would represent profit.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point. That's the thing. I would be against selling Mecha, but there's a point there. Like 0 and then profit, and that will help financially. Aronson is another one that's out of contract in 2027. So again, bring him in, keep him in. I agree with Gerry. I'll keep him as a squad player, honestly.
Yes, so would I.
Not as the starter. The problem is, will he stay as a squad player, especially after, of course, he want to show, he want to shine at the World Cup, But will he be okay? He's 25 now. Will he be okay to stay? Or if he has offers, he will go to the club and say, okay, I'm out of contract. I have this offer. I want to renew the contract if you don't let me leave. That happened, in football. That can happen. So the discussion will be needed about Aronson. Longstaff too, you mentioned him before. We mentioned him before, he's another one that I think arrived at Leeds, signed to be a starter, and he has players better than him now. Ahead of him, Tanaka, Ampadu, and Stark. There's no way you take those three players when we are playing with a midfield 5, out of the starting 11. So again, another player that 28 will want to play, will want to start. I don't think Longstaff, especially coming from Newcastle, will be okay to play another season at Leeds as a rotation player. Gruev too, I think there needs to be an improvement there. And even in defense, we just have Bourne now. Of course, Byram and Chaos will leave. Even Perry can generate profit. Not profit in terms of profit is not the right term. Can generate something, but not profit, because, for example, we got him for 15 million, and Besiktas offered us 15 million in January, so that's the same sum. At least it's not a loss, but I think it's another player that maybe will have offers from Brazil, one of the top clubs in Brazil, maybe. So yeah, it will be difficult. But if you have a smart approach like they did last summer, signing Goodmanson, Biol, Stack, Calvert-Lewin, players suitable for this new system, in the end, because we started with a different one.
Yeah.
That is more. My worry is, of course, that if certain players goes, we will reinvest the money on a limited number of players. While on the other hand, for me, we need more players looking at our current squad. We need to expand the depth. while it looks like, reading through the lines of what Paraag said, that we will operate with a very similar size in the squad,
But
even less.
That is a Farke request as well. Like Daniel Farke does not like a bloated squad.
I know. Yeah.
Injuries, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've been lucky with injuries, haven't we? Yeah. Well, wait till the headline tomorrow morning. We dropped 40 million in Buonanotte. That'll get it all going. But we got the low knees as well, of course. Yeah. We got to get them off. We got to get Jack off the books. We got to. Is Vober still around?
Vober's still around. He's coming back.
Yeah.
Played a match 1.5 games this season.
Yeah, Ken hold on to Joffy. Someone will be looking at him. He's had a good season.
Yeah.
Smith's still there. Who else would we? Matthew Joseph is still always. He was injured, so
he's got his ACL. He'll be till Christmas.
Go as well. Yeah, so we got that to do too.
Yeah, you clear the deck of the ones that are out. Try and bring as much money as you can in for them. You've got the money from the revenue come in this year. You're hoping for some smart commercial revenues. Dragapoulos came in this year as well. We'll see what his investment looks like when it finally comes in, and what direction and how they funnel that into the club in terms of sponsorship and that kind of direction. See if they can use some of that money. I think the good news is that the stadium money is not part of the SCR stuff, so that's separate. And that's good that is separate. But yeah, I think there's some smart moves there. They might not make huge amounts of money on certain players, but as long as they can make a profit on those players, that'll help them in terms of spending it again. And then I think if they're really, really smart and can get a couple of good free transfers, and I know people hate free transfers because it's doing it on the cheap. Dominic Calvert-Lewin and Lucas Metcha proved this summer that doing it on the cheap isn't necessarily always a bad idea, especially when you've got players who are controlling their contract situations and letting their contracts wind down to pick their moves. Like Danilo Doki, if he is a player that's available, that's a free transfer. There you go. That's not coming out of, well, it is coming out of your SCR, Kitty, because that does include wages, agent fees, transfer fees, managers' wages, and amortization. But it's not a massive transfer fee up front, and you can spread it out over the length of a contract. So yeah, it'd be an interesting one. I don't want to see huge changes on the pitch because I'd like Leeds to start the season with a bit of stability. If we started the season with the squad or the starting 11 that played, not necessarily against Brighton, but maybe against Spurs, wouldn't be too worried about that for a couple of games, and then upgrade the positions around it maybe as well and get more quality off the bench. And so maybe Daniel Farke can use his bench a little bit earlier and a little bit more. But yeah, it's going to be another interesting summer. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question? Because it's a question that goes on. Has been going on for years. James Milner hasn't signed yet a new contract. At Brighton, and Solly March too, another player that has Premier League experience. Will you take him?
No.
42 now, I think. 41, 42.
It's a sentimentality signing. No.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
I would take him, honestly, just for the sentiment.
But I think there's a couple there they could do though. There is some good free transfers out there this summer. So
yeah. I think the likes of Coventry and that will be looking at. I think they're going to sign Seamus Coleman, someone like that, and that's the sort of market they'll be shopping around in. But we think that's yesterday. We went all season without picking an outfield player who was 30, at least 30 plus.
Didn't pick anyone under 21 either.
Well, that's true as well. We hadn't got a young player of the year, did we? I think Carl Darlow was in for that. Yeah. That's true. A couple of lads coming through. Creswell's interesting on the bench. I know his dad was at the last game. We haven't had anybody break through for a while, so that would be good too. But we wait to see what the shape of our team will be next year. But you say not much. Don't want major disruption and signing 100 players like Forest, but we do need quality definitely, and
we do need quality.
Because we were lucky with injuries this year, and again down to the medical team. And I know that's one thing that Spurs pointed out today. They're going to look into is the medical team. I think they've more to look at as well. Yeah.
Jesus, if there's ever the most obvious thing to do at a club's like how many ACL injuries have you got? You might want to look at your medical team.
I think it's the mad pitch, isn't it? That mad grass.
What is?
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, and I hear Nuno might be going today, or if he's gone already, I don't know if he's having a big heart. And Craig Bellamy at Burnley. So there's lots of things happening, but that's Championship, and that's non-league really, isn't it? So we're not bothered about that stuff, are we?
That's someone else's business.
That Athletic article wasn't a great light on Nuno, to be fair. Looking at all
He's fallen out with a lot of players.
Yeah, exactly.
But to be fair, I mean,
he wasn't speaking to the players at half time and after games.
I
think that lad.
I don't mind managers falling out with players, especially if you look at where his team is in the league and go, well, you're in the bottom three, lads. I'm not going to be your best mate. You know, I'm not going to be, because your best mate hasn't got you out of the bottom three. So I'm not going to be your friend. I'll be your friend at the end of the season when you've done the job. But not speaking to players at halftime and not speaking to them after games, that's probably a bit too far. Sorry, Gerry.
I'm playing someone like Pablo. I know the West Ham guy. I've watched him a few times this season. Trap a bag of cement comes in.
25 million they spent on him. No goals.
It says, it says on the article that he has the same agent of Nuno.
Yeah. And apparently was an original transfer value about 200 grand or something, you know.
Something like that, yeah.
And it says also that in the article says that the medical team wasn't giving the green light to sign him because he had, I think, an ankle problem, but Nuno wanted to sign him anyway. So they signed him anyway.
I mean, some of the players there, I mean, I wouldn't say no to Mavropanos. I wouldn't say no to Malik Diouf at left back. I think he'd be, because that, of all the players I've seen play left side this season and cross the ball in, Malik Diouf has a fantastic cross, and given the kind of players that we've got up front, I wouldn't say no to him as a backup left back option as well. And then I really like Castellanos. Like, I like the type of player that he is. I just like his work rate. I like the effort he puts in. He's a nutcase, but I do like the work rate that he puts in. So, you know, and he's got goals. He's come in. I mean, I think he's got more goals in the Premier League than he got in Serie A. I think the Premier League obviously suits him better than the Italian league did, but they'll have to get some discounts.
Where will Jared Bowen end up?
Well, that's the question. Yeah, would you take
United,
him, or does he go missing? You reckon?
Yeah, I think Man
United. He's not going missing in big games too much, though. Oh, sorry, yes.
Not as a start, not as a starter, of course, but I think it's a player that can settle, for example, on Man United. You know, one of these.
But if we signed him, we'd have to put up with Danny Dyer in the West End, wouldn't we? So we don't want that.
We wanted to sign him back in the day
when he was at Hull.
I
remember him playing for Hull, and there was a Hungarian guy up front, and on this, they tore us to shreds that day. You know, I can't remember the guy's name, but Bowen is definitely a star. But I think he'll go Liverpool or Newcastle or somewhere like that. But
Newcastle is a good shout.
Yeah, it's them. He fits what they
do.
do.
Gordon will be going to Bayern Munich apparently. Yeah.
Apparently so, yeah. And at least he could be going to Liverpool. That's to be any truth in that. But an interesting summer anyway. Again, the Premier League, lots of change, lots of new managers next season, lots of new players coming in to be a big overhaul this year in the Premier League. We will see how it goes. We'll keep track of it on the daily news, which is back tomorrow morning. Took this morning off. My wife to the airport. She's gone off to Arizona, so took the morning and to enjoy a bit of sunshine for a change. But back in the morning with the news, and then we'll have a podcast out Wednesday. We're going to start looking at the predictions videos as well that we did myself, Gerry, and Paul did on the podcast, and then the rest of the lads on the videos that we did over the week leading to see who got it right. Dara from Dara from Leeds, that, and you know, Dara, you didn't get it right, Dara. Had picked Spurs to lose every game, so sorry about that, Dara. But he wasn't the only one. There was a couple of others had Spurs to go down as well, so we'll get stuck into them in the next couple of weeks as well and digest all of that. And then we'll see where we go. Transfer window opens on the 15th. It's going to pick up. The World Cup's going to slow it down, and we'll keep an eye on the SDR. We'll try and speak to somebody who knows a little bit more about football finance than me trying to navigate through documents that are well over my head.
It's ready meals and beer for you then now, Gerry. You're on your own for a few days, is it?
Well, at the house for the week. Yeah, she's not back till Saturday. She's going off to Arizona for a month.
My God. Yeah.
Me and the dog. Yeah. Be grand.
Microwave. That'll do.
Yeah. Popcorn all week. That'd be good. Right. Massive thanks to Andrea and to Gerry. You can find Andrea over at the Unfiltered podcast on Lockheed Leeds, and you can find Gerry over on Talking Leeds podcast as well. Their social handles are in the yellow boxes there below them, and the links to their channels are down below in the description. And massive thanks to everyone who has contributed to the podcast this week. Massive thanks to James Wallace, who helped us with our rebrand last year, at the start of this season. We've got some small tweaks for the new look for the new season coming up. And a thanks to Alex from American in Leeds for doing the Sunday sessions. Everyone has contributed across the podcast over the year. Gerry and Paul for the regulars. Andrea when he stepped in when we needed to. Ben Locke at the start of the year as well. And all the lads that have been helpful throughout the season. And a massive thank you to our sponsors as well, who've helped us to keep going over the course of this season. But we'll be back in the morning for the news, and we'll see where Leeds go. Massive thanks to the boys. Talk to you soon. See you later. Bye.